Hey guys, welcome to my very first discussion video here on the channel. This is something I've been really wanting to do for quite some time now because I love talking about movies, I love talking about TV shows, Star Wars, playing video games, but you know what? I like to discuss a lot of the other interesting things that goes on behind the scenes with movie making, with storytelling, with movies, with games, with books. All of that stuff really interests me, and that's what this segment is here for. For me to discuss with you guys about something about what I love, and that's what we're going to be doing here. So this is going to serve as a little bit of an introduction before we really get into the meat of what this video is about, because this is something I plan to do at least every month at the end of the month, discuss something that I think is rather interesting about the stuff that I love. And I wanted my first video to be about something that is near and dear to my heart, and that is screenwriting. Now, I've been looking at screenwriting videos for quite some time on YouTube, and all of them are very helpful in a lot of different ways, but none of them have really clicked with me yet, as in, they haven't really told my story yet. And so that's what I want to do here. I want to talk about my story and my journey and how maybe it can help other aspiring screenwriters out there, because there's things that I'm going to discuss that a lot of people on YouTube that are screenwriters and screenwriting channels don't really discuss, and I think it's important. So first off, let's get into my experience on writing screenplays. Now, I started writing screenplays roughly around my sophomore year of high school. So this is around 2011, 2012, and it was something that my best friend and I were trying to get into. We were wanting to make movies, and I was really interested in screenplays. At this point in time, I had been reading some screenplays, finding them online, and going through them, and wanting to write my own stuff. So we would work together on, originally we were going to make a Legend of Zelda fan film, and we started writing this screenplay, and we got really way over our heads with writing that, but it was a great learning experience. And since then, me and him have worked together to write other movies, one that we really wrote a solid draft of, but we never really finished. We wrote some short films later on, and we've continued to write some short films. But in the meantime, I have also been working on screenplays this entire time. I've been writing both original and adaptations. And that's something that I don't think people really discuss, and that is that adapting a screenplay or adapting a story into a screenplay is very helpful for somebody that wants to be an aspiring screenwriter. And I do it all the time because I've discovered that sometimes I'm not really in the mood to come up with an original idea, or it's just not coming to me. And I think to myself, well, what is something that I love that I can sit down and adapt that story and just have fun, and it will be practice for when I eventually write some original screenplays. So I originally started out, when I was writing that Legend of Zelda script, I also wrote my first ever full-length screenplay based off of Les Miserables. I remember at the time the Les Mis movie came out in theaters, and people that I knew were really annoyed that it was a sing-through musical. So I decided to read the book and really study the musical and adapt both together and putting in dialogue as well. And I wrote this huge screenplay that was like 240 pages. It was very self-indulgent. It didn't abide by any type of structure. I just wrote it, and it was a great learning experience. And after that, I wrote a Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone screenplay, a Chamber of Secrets screenplay. I have done plenty of stuff, but I've also done original screenplays too. And the early stuff with, say, Les Miserables really helped me get to where I was able to write an original screenplay. And it was very helpful for me in learning the craft and making some of my best work yet. So if you actually look on my channel, you'll see that I have posted at least 2 videos where I've actually read some screenplays that I have written. These were fan scripts, more or less. They were, you know, adaptations of Star Wars, my own version of Star Wars Episode 1, and my own Superman origin story. Now, these are obviously adaptations. I don't own the rights to these. These were just fun little stories to tell, but I was able to learn the craft of screenwriting through all the other areas that I had gone through, writing adaptations, and was able to craft this stuff. But it has helped me overall learn the craft so much better, and what I write when it is original is so much richer because of it. So if you're wondering, this video is mainly going to focus on how to write adaptations first, and focus on those, and through those, you'll hopefully be able to get those creative juices flowing to be able to write an original screenplay yourself. And that's something that really isn't talked about much. And that is, I think, adaptations and writing something you're familiar with is extremely beneficial to eventually writing an original screenplay. So that's what we're going to discuss here. And so the first thing you should wonder is, how do you get started? Well, the answer to that is really simple. For me, at least, it has been watching movies. Watch movies you love and pay attention to them. Kind of look at the structure and how the characters work, and see how the characters grow from the beginning of the story to the end of the story. And look at this very closely. Then I would also recommend that you read screenplays. Now, there are plenty of areas online where you can read screenplays that are free for you to use. There's plenty of databases where you can find a screenplay, and oftentimes you might be able to find the screenplay to your favorite movie. There's also places, such as on Amazon, where you can actually buy screenplays. This book right here is a collection of the early screenplays of the Coen brothers. I actually got this book when I took a screenwriting class a few years ago, and it was very helpful because this has the screenplays as they were originally written, and you're able to study them, look at the structure, and figure out how you are supposed to write a screenplay and actually, you know, do something really cool here. It shows the setup and everything. It shows kind of, you know, how you're supposed to structure a screenplay, and it's very helpful. Reading screenplays is key to understanding screenwriting in general, and I feel like you can't write a screenplay without at least examining other screenplays. Now, obviously, I'm pitching this video towards people that are kind of nervous about making an original idea, or they just don't really have an original idea. And I say to that, if you're worried about that, then adapt something you love. As I mentioned, I adapted Les Miserables, both the musical and the book. I adapted Harry Potter. I even adapted Game of Thrones, and it was really an interesting experience, and I think that is really key here. So if you're worried that you don't really have a solid original idea, just pick up a story you love and read it and adapt it for yourself. Now, we get into the writing of the screenplay. Now, I should also mention that you will need some way of writing this screenplay, whether it is on Word or there are plenty of other sites such as Celtics where you are able to write a screenplay in the particular format. It's very helpful. It's very easy to use. I actually use Final Draft, which is kind of the industry standard for writing screenplays, but that is really on more of the expensive end. So if you're not willing to fork out some money, then I say something like Celtics will be very helpful. Or you can also find templates on Word. They won't exactly be at the right ratio or anything, but it will be very beneficial for you to at least try to figure out the style of screenwriting. Now, let's say you got your story, you got your book that you are going to adapt. Say you want to adapt The Sorcerer's Stone like I did. So your first step is to just adapt it. And do not worry about structure or anything. Just adapt the story as you read it. You can pick and choose what you cut, what you keep in, and if you want to, you can add if you want to. Make it your own. This is something that I did with my Harry Potter script, was I decided to go a more darker route with my Sorcerer's Stone screenplay and make it kind of an epic. This was a 180-some page script that dealt with some kind of more mature themes than the other Harry Potter books. And so it was something that was wholly my own. And I think my best friend said it best when he was basically like, this is basically Harry Potter meets Breakfast Club. And I thought that was a very neat way of putting it. Now, after you finish writing, it could be very beneficial for you to start looking at your screenplay, reading it over, and look at the character beats. Look at how the characters change from the beginning of the script to the end of the script. Start looking at when the act breaks should happen, because your script is definitely going to be messy because you didn't focus on any type of structure. You just vomited it out, and that's completely okay. But it could be very beneficial for you to read over your script and start kind of seeing, you know, where those act breaks are, where, you know, the first act ends, where the third act begins. It's all very beneficial for you, but you don't have to necessarily do this. But it is a really good idea that you do. And if you do want to do this, you can edit your script and fit it into more of the mold of what a traditional screenplay looks like. And also, if this takes you several tries, writing a screenplay, doing this over and over, and you're afraid that you're not getting anywhere because you're just adapting stuff, don't worry about not being able to write an original screenplay, because as long as you are writing, you are learning. Now, the next thing I want to discuss is talking about structure, because you now have written a screenplay that is kind of messy at this point, but you have gotten it done. And so now you kind of need to learn the craft of screenwriting itself. So I think it would be very beneficial to get a book such as Sid Field's Screenplay. These are basically books that are written specifically for young writers to learn the craft of screenwriting. It tells you everything you need to know. It tells you how to deal with structure, how to deal with characters, how to even deal with adaptations. And it's very helpful because Sid Field, in this book, he also takes examples from other movies and other screenplays. There's examples such as Chinatown, American Beauty, Fellowship of the Ring, Cold Mountain, and it could even be beneficial to watch the movies and read the screenplays of, what authors are talking about in their books. There are also other books, plenty of other books that you can choose from. There's also Blake Snyder's Save the Cat, which I really do recommend. It's honestly the first book on screenwriting that I ever read, and it's very well informed and deals a lot with structure, and it's really simple and easy to learn, and I think it's actually easier to understand than Sid Field. I am glad that I read Sid Field, but I say that Blake Snyder is definitely an easier writer to understand, and his structure is very sound as well. But on top of books, there's also plenty of other places that you can go to. There's plenty of videos on YouTube that are about screenwriting that will be very helpful for you. These are things that I have used all the time. I definitely recommend Film Courage, which is a channel on YouTube that is specifically for screenwriters. There's plenty of stories by older screenwriters or newer screenwriters that have dealt with this craft for a short or long amount of time, and they talk about their writing process, and you see that everybody's writing process is different. They've taken the ideas and have molded it into their own, and that's eventually what you want to do. I also recommend Tyler Morey, who is a really good screenwriting storyteller YouTuber here on the platform. His videos are always very informative, and he's also very young like myself, and he's been doing this for a good amount of time, and he also has his own screenwriting course and book that you could also read. I haven't read it, so I can't necessarily recommend it yet, but he is definitely a channel that you should check out. There's also plenty of articles online that you can visit and learn about screenwriting. I definitely recommend the website, The Script Lab. This is something that I use all the time because they specifically talk about the 8-sequence structure, and there are plenty of articles on there that detail what exactly the 8-sequence structure is, and it's very helpful. Basically, your story is split up into 8 sequences. You have 2 in the first act, you have 4 in the second act, and you have 2 in the third act, and each one of them progresses the story in a different way, and it's extremely helpful, and it's actually something that I have been using a lot lately in my own screenwriting. Now, from this point on, you have written your screenplay, you have done your homework, you have read about or watched videos about screenwriting, and you've learned about all these different techniques, and now it is your turn to finally figure out what exactly you want to do and what path you want to go to. Now, obviously, I'm going to be talking more about adapting stories into screenplays, but you can also take everything that I have said and also apply it to writing your own original screenplays, because maybe at this point you have understood everything you need to know and you finally have that idea and you can write that original screenplay that you've been dying to write for some time now. But for some of us that might still be a little bit weary about writing an original screenplay, you can still adapt. So in terms of using different screenplay structures, I recommend at least using Blake Snyder's Save the Cat first. I think it's very well done, very informative, and really easy to use. Then I would move on to Sid Field's screenplay, because I think the way he goes into it is a lot more detailed and is more traditional in a lot of ways. It's very old style screenwriting that is a little bit more challenging than Blake Snyder's. And then after that, I would go on to do something like looking at the 8-sequence structure, because I think that's all very helpful. And you can mix and match these techniques together to make your own, because you don't have to just do what one person says. As I mentioned, there's plenty of screenwriters that have taken their own formula and have devised a way of doing their own screenplays and screenwriting. And I think that's ultimately the goal here, is for you to find your own voice. Do you like using Blake Snyder's Save the Cat formula? Or do you also like using the 8-sequence structure? Maybe you could, in a way, combine those. In fact, I specifically use a combination of the 8-sequence structure and the structure that is in Sid Field's screenplay, and it's the one I am most comfortable with, and it has made it just a blast to write screenplays, both original and, you know, fan-made. But ultimately, it's about what works best for you. And I think that is the biggest takeaway from this that I can give to you, is that take it at your own pace, do what you think is best for you, and keep writing. It is so important, because you may not have that original idea just yet, but I promise you, you will, especially after having so much practice. Because I wrote my first original screenplay after writing a Les Mis script and 2 Harry Potter scripts. And then I didn't write another original screenplay until after I wrote another couple adaptations, because I needed that creative process. But it was always important. Everything that I wrote was important because it got me to where I am now. Because you should always keep writing, even if it's not original. If you're adapting something, don't be ashamed that you're adapting something that is not going to be seen, because it's just for you. It's for you to get practice and become one of the best screenwriters that you possibly can be. And that's what, you know, this entire video has been about. And I hope you guys learned something from it. I want to thank you guys, to everybody that may have stuck around to listen to me ramble about this. This is something that is very important to me. I love screenwriting so much. It's one of my favorite hobbies, and I hope to one day write a screenplay that maybe gets noticed, that maybe I make that movie based off of that screenplay, or my best friend does, or I sell it to somebody. That's the ultimate goal. But I love screenwriting, whether it's adapting something or whether it's making something original. And this is for those that are kind of scared to tackle those original ideas. And I say, adapt something you love. Now, if anybody is interested, any of the things that I talked about in this video, such as the books or the websites or the YouTube channels, I'm going to leave links to those in the description below so that you can quickly go to those and learn a whole lot more, because they're probably a little bit more organized than I am. But I want to thank everybody that watched this video, and as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and stay positive.